became a career firefighter with the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Service, the chief of the medical division, or EMS, the unofficial historian of the Howard County Department of Fire and Rescue Services. Over 65,000 digital images and newspaper articles, magazine articles, etc. Episode 24-18. And then there was Evelyn. Back in the early 90s, 1990 to 93 or so, we had an individual in Howard County off of Montgomery Road that was what we would refer to as a frequent flyer. She was an elderly lady, lived by herself. Her husband had died several years before. She did not want to be placed into an extended care facility, in-home assistance. She was very independent, feisty to say the least. Neighbors had tried to assist her over the years, and she burnt them out, meaning neighbors initially said, hey, if you need anything, give me a call and we'll come on over. Well, those calls were multiple calls a day, multiple times a day throughout the 24 hours. And it got to the point that even the neighbors would not answer the phone. Also got to the point that several agencies, churches, etc., decided, they would step in and they would help the lady with whatever needs were, to talk to her, etc., etc. But even those agencies changed their phone numbers. So she certainly frustrated the neighbors that were trying to assist her. She was frustrating any of the community agencies that they were trying to assist her, because she would just call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just to talk to somebody, to ask them to come over and open the window, turn off the air conditioning, get her a drink of water, whatever. I mean, it just became a challenge. Anyway, who fills that void? Who do you call when your church, your neighbors, your family, because her family lived in Virginia and didn't want anything to do with her at all, which was frustrating. But, who do you call when you need something? It's the fire department. Well, and that's indeed what she did. Ms. Evelyn von Lindenberg started to call the fire service for these needs, either to talk to somebody, to ask that her air conditioning be turned up, heat down, get a glass of water, pick up something that fell on the floor. Occasionally, she'd even call that I'm having chest pains or whatever, or not feeling good, and the ambulance would respond. Each one of these requests, however, we would send a unit, usually ambulance 15 out of Elk Ridge. The ambulance 95 out of Longreach was probably the second unit that would respond. But we were doing this, sporadically, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in the early 90s, 90, 91, 92, and 93, we responded well over 300 times that I can document. And there were probably more times than that we responded. I got involved because it's just not right to have to respond to a single resident that many times. My great concern was that we may be responding to Ms. von Lindenberg for an unknown incident. And while we were responding there, we were no longer near the Elk Ridge station. And, what would happen if there was a cardiac arrest next door, or a child suffered a severe injury, laceration, that ambulance would be out of position because of Ms. von Lindenberg. I tried several things to see if I could rectify it. I went to social services. Basically, they couldn't help. I went to senior citizens agency. They couldn't help. I went to several other county agencies, and none of them could help. Now, they could help if it was Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, but after that, they couldn't. So the bottom line is that there was nothing else that could be done, I felt, to stop these calls. Out of frustration, I went to the Office of Law. Rebecca Laws, who was the attorney that was assigned to the Howard County Fire Department, who had been very, very helpful over the years with legal issues concerning the fire service. I went to her and I said, here's what I'm going to do. Next time she calls, and it turns out to be a false alarm, because we told her, do not call, I'm going to go ahead and swear out a complaint for a false alarm, and we're going to go to court. and we'll let the court deal with it. And she sat back and looked me in the eye and she said, think this through for a second. I said, okay, I'm willing to think. She said, you go to court. You're going to go to court and you're going to be in your dress blues, and just all spiffy looking, bureaucratic looking as you walk up and go to the prosecutor's table. And then what's going to happen? Someone's going to bring in Ms. von Lindenberg, this frail, weak individual, either coming down in a walker or in a wheelchair or something like that, to the defendant's table. And the bottom line is that's going to be looked at as the big bad government is picking on this poor frail lady. So if nothing else, the court of public opinion is not going to be on our side. So she just said, there's nothing we can really do. During that time frame also, I had responded to the House multiple times, and she and I had chats, one-on-one chats. Some of them were rather, we'll say, terse and heated, out of earshot of anybody else. When we did that, she was a little misty-eyed, and I will never do that again. I will never, never, never do that again. And in less than 24 hours, she started calling again. So that wouldn't help. I even swear that on one occasion, it's more hypothetical, but on one occasion that I had responded, I'm leaving out the side door, and here comes Elkridge in the front door bringing her a birthday cake and birthday presents. And I went down to the station after, and I said, what are you guys doing? I'm trying to get you all out of responding to her house for all these annoying calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're coming in and doing a birthday party. I mean, let's work together here, guys. It also got to the point that I told communications, each time she calls, you page me. I don't care whether it's 24 hours, what time of day it was, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Page me. I will call you and to confirm, and I will either respond or I will wake up and I'll talk with you, because I want to be really irritated if I had to deal with her, especially if I was going to get up in the middle of the night and go down to her residence to communicate with her. So yeah, I was highly, highly agitated. It was a clear abuse of the system, and everything that I tried to do to stop it just did not work, and it just continued and continued. Ms. von Lindenberg, over these 300 plus calls, they were sprinkled in with every now and then a request for medical assistance, and it was because of that we always sent a unit, because you just never know when the real call is going to come in. So this continued until July of 1993, when she called for a medical emergency. Crews got there, and it was indeed a true medical emergency. She's having a cardiac issue. She was taken to the hospital and received medical treatment, but she passed away. She was going to be in a funeral home in Elkridge, and the dates were set, or the date was set for the viewing. And in part out of guilt, I decided I would pay my final respects, my final visit to her in the funeral home in Elkridge. So I drove down and parked and went into the funeral home and walked into the parlor. And did I get the surprise and or shock of my life? When I walked in there, the only people who were in there were other fire service personnel or the news media, because the news media had covered the story several times. That's who was in there. There's no family. No family ever showed up. And here I'm thinking, walking in, the only people there were the fire service people who had responded there, dozens, if not hundreds of times, and the media. And it just dawned on me at that moment in time, and it made me feel so small, that we were her family. After all this time, we were her family. We were the only thing that she had. Communications personnel, fire rescue, and media. We were the only family she had. And it caused me to really take a step back or two to think, what our mission is, what our purposes are in serving the citizens of Howard County. And I've always I have felt kind of bad about that. Now, it doesn't negate the hundreds of times she called, but it just came to me in that moment, walking through that door, that I and the firefighters, communications folks, we were her family. She had no other family. And that situation has stuck with me for all these years. Please use your remaining heartbeats wisely and not waste a single precious one.